good afternoon. Welcome everyone. Thank you for attending my presentation. I think to be a lot of you. So this is final presentation for another break. So I'll introduce myself shortly. So I'm going to talk about the future of Proiect controls in our mind, in our vision. Talk about big data, which is a hot topic, but see how we can practically use that for our work in Proiect controls and what could it bring us, and talk about obstacles, bottlenecks, difficulties. Not too much about software, you need it, of course, but it's not the big picture. I will try to show you or let you show the big picture behind how do we get there and what's needed actually. So my name is Vliet. I am a civil engineering background. I'm business director for cost engineering, worked for more than 20 years in the field of cost engineering. Our company is also called cost engineering, so there's not much questions out there. If people are introduced what we do, everything around that, teaching, education, providing services and around that. We are a member of many organizations which have laid the foundation of cost engineering. And our first mission is actually to stress out the importance of that discipline actually. So a little bit before I go to the presentation about who we are actually as a company. We like to be on board in the complete project phase, starting with the estimating, conceptual estimating, your business ideas all the way when you go to execution, you have the scaling, the integration with the scaling, the cost management during your execution phase, and then, okay, project is finished, what do? We store the information in the project databases. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that, but that's also what we stand for as a company. So that's important to be aware of. So because we say we are cost engineering as a company, we like to do everything around that picture. So we have specialists for providing estimating services, control services, scaling service, all around that. But we have developed tools to support you with that education and provide databases which you need for your estimating practices. Enough about who we are, who I am. We're going to talk about this interesting topic. So this is the topics I want to stress out a little bit with this presentation. How are we doing with some statistical information? I already saw from previous presentation McKinsey statistics about projects performance, some specific examples, and then okay, but how did we go there? A little bit referring to the previous presentation as well. I think we have some great overlaps there, and we can support each other there. And why do we need it all in an integrated project control process? So what's the need for that, and what do we gain from it? So we want to stress out a little bit around that area. But yeah, I think if this is all simple, most enterprises should already have this in place, but it's not. It's difficult, it's complicated. So I want to stress out a little bit the bottleneck. So what needs to be done actually to get there. And then we're going to talk some more about big data. So, okay, if this is all in place, we have an integrated solution, then we can talk about big data, because that actually means something then, because otherwise it's just garbage collective. So we want to have a structured, organized way of harvesting data, collecting data throughout the life cycle of projects in order to do the big data analysis on our projects to improve the predictability of our future projects. That's actually the big picture behind this need for the big data analysis. So the objectives of this presentation, to stress out the importance here, of course, I already mentioned that, the pitfalls, so what's going wrong, how can we avoid them. It's an organizational-wide process actually. It's not a siloed approach. It's never going to work in only your cost estimation department or in only your project control department. It has to be adopted and integrated throughout the enterprise. So, a little bit about how we are controlling the projects. So I have this example. People from the US, I don't go into details. People from the US might recognize this project. It's from the World Trade Center, so I'm not going to point any fingers who has controlled this project, but you've seen this typical is an example, one of the many, many examples where we have set the budget for some reason and we came out double and the project runs for 6 years, and again we were not happy, but I think the bottom line is why was that happening and could we prevent the same scenario in the future? I think we cannot change the past, obviously it's happened. But can we come up with a framework, with a methodology, a system to avoid this happening over and over again? So that's the big picture I want to stress out. So there is, technology is not an issue. So it's there, Amazon and these big companies, these insurance companies are using the big data analysis for their predictability, for their business model. So technology is not longer an issue in that sense. Culture is, awareness, and all of that. So this is another study from Ernst & Young. You see especially the mega projects are subject for overruns, and they focus, they get all the attention in the media and stuff like that, of course. But you see they're way off in over budget and not meet the schedule by average. And to say, is this only happening in the oil and gas? No. It's happening infrastructural project, oil and gas mining projects. So this is a McKinsey study published quite recently, showing you, okay, but yeah, we're not on the right track. So we now can at least measure and publish this information to say, okay, we are not where we want to be. Of course, we can go on and on, but by showing this to the management, to the CEOs, to the board members, you say, okay, do we want to present the same picture 10 years from now, or do we want to change something? That's the big question. If you say, okay, we're happy with this, then we'll leave it as it is, of course. So what are the causes? A couple of them. We had a couple of them from previous presentation. It is open doors all over the place, but I will show you also some real practical things you can do to avoid, because inadequate communication is quite okay, you can do nothing about it. You can maybe talking the same language helps, or being at the same place also helps. But how can we avoid this problem? So I will come to this later on. But this is also a big issue. Also looking at projects to your pink glasses, because everyone wants to do a new project. This is exciting to do a new project. Everyone is on board, and management likes to do more new projects, and maybe they're a little bit too positive around the business case or around the outcomes, because yeah, it's natural actually in human nature to have that sense. So why do we need it at all? So there's one big reason. There's only one reason to do it, to improve ourselves. Of course, we want to make more profit. We want to be more spot on in when we do a tender. We want to increase the business. We want to have less surprises when the project is finished. So there must be a continuously improvement cycle in every process we have, and especially in project controls, because it's losing or making money. Actually, it's important. And this next process is taken from the ASCE TCM framework. The ASCE is the International Cost Engineering Organization. They have come up with the TCM, Total Cost Management Framework, of an integrated project controls process. I think this is the heart of the system, actually. And every step in the process has an improvement mechanism inside. So you're not just measuring, you're not just monitoring, You're not just looking at figures, but actually you do something with the outcomes of the information, and you store it, you process it, and you improve it. You improve it every time you enter the same process. I think this is the basic message you had. This is the first step. Design an integrated process which is capable of improving itself. So what are we face? What kind of issues we face actually, and why is this not happening, and why is this so difficult to achieve? So we have found some of them listed in some overview. So these are just a little list of causes, bottlenecks, you might call them. For instance, we have disciplines, and they're working on their own. We have process engineering working in their space. We have estimating at the front end, and 2 years later, project control team comes in, and they don't know about the estimators anymore, and the estimators don't know about the project anymore, so they're working on their own. And that's one of the things we're facing. They're no longer involved with the project, and therefore they don't know they have made mistakes in the estimates or something came out. So that's one of the things. They're responsible for their own shop, so they don't care about the actual figures. They're only responsible for what they have delivered in their own environment. So it's not an enterprise-wide responsibility awareness in that sense. There is no structure. I think structure, breakdown structure, should be the heart of any systems, because that's the only way to communicate between different systems, because you're looking at different information. This list of information has to be communicated with this list of information. So we have to come up with a common language, if you would call it, which you can use a structure, breakdown structure for that, in order to not lose any information by moving from one process step to the other one. So close out, that's something we don't like. So 80% of the projects we're going to move away. Project team is decompositioning. We go over to the next project. But at the 80% of the job, most problems come in. So we have to solve the problems. We have to analyze it. We have to look at how we did it actually. And it's not a pretty thing mostly, because people make mistakes. Things happen. It's just the way it is. So. But we have to deal with it in order to improve ourselves. Otherwise, we're hiding away. A little bit about these topics, more in detail. So we don't understand actually the other disciplines. That's one of the causes. So we don't know what they're doing. There's no awareness what procurement is doing or engineering is doing. So we know, okay, they're making design or they're doing negotiation for the pricing, but more than that, there's no cross-discipline awareness. So if there is, then okay, procurement should come up with a good list of quotes, so the estimating department can analyze the quotes and compare them with their budget items. If that awareness is there, there's okay, what's needed for my colleagues, that's already an improvement. So we have miscommunication, they don't know what you're talking about. You're in different worlds, we don't know. There should be some kind of cross-enterprise communication platform that we know a little bit why we need each other. So what's procurement doing with estimating, and what's engineering benefits from cost control? So if we know what they're doing and what type of information the other disciplines are looking for, that is already an improvement. So you're not looking at your own shop anymore, your own silo. So, but if you don't do that, you have a lot of rework and efficiency. You have to remodel. You get, let's say, a list from engineering, which is completely mismatched, where you cannot read the quantities in your estimates. So you have to do a lot of work and a lot of frustration because it's not an aligned process in that sense. Another thing is, so we are only responsible for our own work. So that doesn't promote, let's say, responsibility for the other disciplines. Because you get success, you get measured, you get accounted for, because this is your boundaries. This is where you have to operate, this is where you are measured in, and if you perform well, you get a bonus. But it's not looking at the enterprise needs, it's only looking at the individual needs, departmental needs, in that sense. So if there is also responsibility across the other disciplines, you will get more awareness and you get more responsibility. And not the over-the-wall syndrome, okay, we finished, then hand it over to the next thing. That should change. And we think it's important, for instance, the estimator should be involved in project execution because he's still responsible for the estimate. And he can do all the change orders. That keeps the responsibility where it should be. Not hand it over to another team. Okay, these figures must be wrong. So there must be common responsibility and also involvement in any different phases of the project. Breakdown structures. I addressed this is the core of the system because we have seen many companies that doesn't have them in place. They invent structures for each project. Okay, that's something you can do. It's nice work, but there should be something you, as a kind of a red thread across the organization, which you can measure against. So, for instance, you should have a CBS, cost breakdown structure, which is applicable for all your projects. So you can say, okay, this we don't need, this we don't need, this we don't need, but this is applicable, and then we measure that. So consistency, framework. That's what we are looking for, because otherwise we cannot measure, we cannot benchmark, we cannot analyze. So but you see many different cases, it's not in place. So then we cannot compare and we cannot improve. And at the end of the day, we want to use the same structures to go back to the first phase, estimating, to see where we have gone in the wrong direction or what should be better next time. Recasting, difficult. We think recasting the estimate is not just reorganizing the estimate in another different structure which is not matching the estimate anymore. It should be able to have a different view of the estimate. And which still allows us actually to go back to the estimate, to break down the details and see, okay, look at my quantities, look at my costs, look at my hours, to analyze, okay, I'm controlling money, for instance, 100,000, but if something has gone wrong or is completely over budget, I want to go back to the estimate, call up the details and see, okay, what happens actually. So that's part of the recasting process. It should be integrated already inside of your estimates. So you will be able to align this information from controls back to the estimate. So, close out. Many companies don't do it. It's just, people don't like to clean up the mess. They want to go to a new project. But this is where the project team is still there. They know exactly what happened in the project. They have the facts. You're now able to draw your lessons learned from that. It must happen. Maybe not for each project, but for the critical major project, you should do that. Because this is your, you can have your lessons learned here and then move that along as baggage to the next projects you're going to do. So, but this is a question you should ask yourselves: how much contingency did we use and what did we use it for? Do we know that? Or is it just additional money? So, if we talk about black box, I think most of the people think this is a black box. It's just additional money. Well, we need some 10% additional money for my project in order to, if something happens, we have some additional budget for it. But it's not. It should be measured as well because it's your risk. And if you have let's say, an archive of typical risk items for all of your projects, the predictability of your risks highly increases because you have historical risk information then in your enterprise as common knowledge. So we should treat contingency or risk also with care and also monitor this during your project in order to say, did it happen? If it happened, okay, how much did we use? What did we use it for? And next time, should we consider it again? But this is often not used, not done. So we just have money and we spend it or not. And then afterwards we do the same trick again for my new projects. But this is something we can analyze as a specific subject in your project. And then the bright ideas should not wait until the end of the project. If there's something, bring back news, you should bring back news when it's needed. Not wait, the other presenters said it, not wait until it's too late. Because then you cannot do anything about it anymore. You should be, the project controller has a very important function, very important role, should be completely unbiased. So he should be able, or she, to bring the bad news at any moment in time, without penalties. If this is not possible, it's not an independent role. It's no use. It's no use to tell good news because you have to. Then you can skip project controls at all. You should be able to tell the truth at any moment of time to say, okay, this is going bad, we should act on it, because otherwise the damage will be twice as high if we don't act now. You should be able to do that without having an angry project manager on your desk. So, and then we have the human element. So they want to keep their information. In the Excel spreadsheets, it's my knowledge. You don't know what it is, I want to keep it like that. Because otherwise, if you know what I'm doing in my spreadsheet, you're going to take my job, and yeah, then they don't need me anymore. That's a commonology, but you're not thinking enterprise-wide. You're thinking of your own career, your own well-being, but it's not serving the company. And also, at the end of the day, not serving you, because if you lose all the bids and you don't make any project anymore because, yeah, you don't know if you win or lose, or the budget is high enough or too low, then at the end of the day, it will come back to you and you get fired because no projects come in. So the human element is very critical in this sense to say, okay, you must be able to change, actually. So that's something you should do. And I think last but not least, it's alignment. You have to have an integrated software solution software platform. It's not just one system like the silos I was talking about between the different disciplines. The same is applicable for the systems. They should be connected, interactive together, and exchanging information all the time. So, because otherwise we get the information too late, or not at all. If there's not an integrated solution in terms of software. But in the end of the day, this is also not something which is in place at many of the occasions. So, what we avoid with that is this different topics. So we have the direct integration. We can look at this real time, which people want. They want to have real-time information. The big data analysis is a good example for that. They can predict if people are looking at Google for sickness or something like that. Google can predict, oh, this area is going to be an epidemic or something like that because people are looking for symptoms on a certain disease. So that predictability can be in software tools to have live information visualized on the screen, but it has to be integrated within all the different systems in your organization in order to get that information at hand. So then again, this guy, you know, obviously, says you have to be willing to change, and people don't want to change. They want to have change, but they don't want to change themselves. So, okay, wait until everything is fixed and everything is done very nice, smoothly, and then I will step in. So that's typically how it is. But you should be able to go into that, because otherwise you will be staying at one position all the time, and everything will stay the same, but the world around you is changing rapidly. So you should be ready for the future. One thing is adopting change throughout the organization, in order to achieve progress. And I think technology is no longer an obstacle in this. It's no hurdle. It's culture, people, and willingness to go over to the next generation project management in that sense. So this is a little bit where we're facing bottlenecks, where we still have to improve ourselves, have a different mindset, look at the process itself. How can we adopt, how can we design an integrated process? You can look at the total cost management framework as a starting point. The ACE organization has come up with a great, let's say, framework of processes to support any enterprise to align their processes, so you don't have to invent everything yourself. And then you can talk about project benchmarking, because if everything is aligned, then this data you're collecting and you're getting from the business is meaningful data and is ready to be analyzed. And then you have the holy grail, actually. That's very, but it's not for free. It's not for free. You have to change your organization to align your processes first, and when you have done, you get the reward, knowing exactly where you stand and what's happening around you. So there you get this picture again, connecting all the different processes together in order to achieve a continuously improvement cycle. Then there will be direct feedback from the projects, and then there will be a learning curve at any project. So there's this process again from the Deming circle, obviously. So what needs to be done to have an integrated project control process? In terms of software, we talked about the process itself. We need to have a good process first, we need to have skilled people, and we need to have good systems. Those three elements should be integrated in that order as well. Software comes at the end. If everything is, the front end is settled, then we need a system to support us. If we talk about the system itself, we must be able to set a transparent cost baseline from the requirements of the stakeholders in order to monitor the cost during the planning execution to get this feedback from KPIs, performance indicators, etc., live from any projects, and also compared to what we have done in the past. So we can say, okay, this KPI must be between 1 and 1.5, because the last 100 projects we have done, this is the average range, and if it's outside of this boundary, we do have a problem. So we can judge from only the KPIs, which are the critical success factors of your project, if your project is performing good or bad. So that's real strength if you can do that. But you have to do your homework first to be able to achieve that. So then we can do the big data analysis at the end of the day to use as feedback for my estimating again, from early phase estimate. So this is typically an example of a structure where we have CBS compared to WBS. So typically, this is the overall enterprise structure you are using for every project. And then the area, or the WBS, is project specific. So we can combine them for each project. So one is project specific, one is enterprise specific. So if we combine them, we are looking at the same picture for every project. Only the right end will be changing because it's a geographical, let's say, setup of the project itself. But then again, we can look at ratios, we can look at averages, we can look at relationships, because we have a common structure at the left end of the screen. Also, what is important in our sense is to keep the link with estimating, or keep the estimate alive. That's also good. So yeah, we have the estimate, but everything changes. We get actual information. Procurement is negotiating the prices. We have different productivity factors. Why do not change the estimate? Because at the end of the day, if we keep updating the estimate towards the project, at the end of the day, I have an as-built estimate. That's valuable information. So why don't do that? Of course, I fix the budget first because that's the money I will get. But I can monitor all the changes against this by updating the estimate itself and updating making the revised budget with all the changes and everything around this. But this is keeping the link with estimating. I talked to you this before. We should involve the estimator also, maybe not full time, but as some level of effort in the execution of the project, because that keeps the responsibility alive as well, and also this person knows the project the best because he has designed, or this person has designed the estimate. So it should be logical to involve the estimating discipline as well. Also, KPIs, monitoring. So I talked to you about this a little bit. So if we have set the boundaries of what is good and what's bad for this project by adding these color codings, we can monitor live for each project if we are into trouble. So that's valuable information just from one picture. From one picture we can see, okay, this has gone bad here. So, and this is a real key indicator. So if we know, if this happens, by doing big data analysis of let's say hundreds of projects, if this happens, most likely our overrun will be between 20 and 25%. That's statistical information I gained from the big data analysis. So we don't want that, so we must act. So this is an example if we have tied all the information together of different systems by showing these dashboards. We will get the awareness first and we can act directly to avoid, let's say, big disasters in the project. Also, we want to allow this project feedback loop to be, to gather the information I'm looking for my benchmarking information. So I start in the first process doing the project initiation. I set the factors of my of the costs and hours and etc. And then I do more estimating, I do execution, but I want to gather these metrics and ratios and everything which are the cost drivers of the project. So I must think of, okay, what's important for this project as a common thing. So is the square meters, cubic meters, surface area, I don't know. But you should capture in your historical project database the key cost drivers, the most important information from the project in a centralized library, and these are your metrics. So you can use them again for early type phase estimating. And this is also a cycle. Gathering information, organizing it, and then at the end of the day get your metrics, your ratios, etc. derived from the project. So we come to this final part of the presentation where we talk about, okay, we have done this, now the project is completed, we have done the closeout, now what can we do with all this information? It should be, let's say, a waste to keep all these single projects in their own environment. So you should do something with it. So you should design a framework to collect your historical information. This is not an ERP system. That's not designed to do that. I think financial information is there, but I'm looking at historical project database, which allows you to also to not only reuse the information, get the key metrics, etc. from your previous project, but also keep the information actual. So you want to have a mechanism in this project benchmarking environment to update the data which is underneath, so that there is no, let's say, 25-year-old project data in, because I probably cannot use it anymore. But I must integrate a mechanism to keep that in sync with reality in order to get the metrics right, in order to get the ratios right. So, and then it's real value to the company, because a lot of companies have historical information. But if it's 25 years old, it's useless. So you must have not only a mechanism to store historical information, but also a mechanism to keep it actual. And then you have a wealth, you have the holy grail. You have the wealth of information at hand from your own projects, in order to avoid big overruns, to get more work from the market, to be more cutting edge on the pricing. So, and this is all nice view, dashboard and everything you get from when you have all this information inside of such a systems to visualize that. So, my conclusion of this message. So we're still a long way from getting this, I think. I think technological, no problem. Mindset of people, mindset of enterprises, creating the awareness of the wealth of information they already have, actually, if they organize it right, is a starting point. And making the connection interdepartmental connections across disciplines to be able to get a visual of the complete project information. So we need to stress those bottlenecks. Cooperation, better awareness of what each department is doing, what is the added value of one department to the other one. Just provide a service from one company, from one department to the other company. Also, organizations should assess their own integrated project control process. So how are we doing? What is good, what is bad, what could be improved? Are we fully integrated? Is everything talking to each other? That should be something of value to challenge that, actually. So I think we can have significant improvements by having this integrated, by getting better bits, better early type phase estimate, making better decisions in the front end, less surprises, more time awareness, increased profitability. So there's all things, if you show this to management, it's all what they want, but there's an effort at the other end of the equation if they want to achieve that. So I think there's no magical system which does this all for you, but if you have a systematic process which is robust and challenged and proven itself, then this is easy, actually. So this is just a little flavor of where we must go, what should be the future and what should be the strength of, if we have an integrated control process, then we can, what is the strength of big data analysis based on your information which is already of good quality. And then I think you have a very valuable organization which is ready for the future. So this is my story. Are there any questions from the audience?
This is not a question, it's just a request for clarification. To me, big data is something different. You are referring to use big data in terms of experience of the company. In the sector in which I work is aerospace defense. Mm-hmm. We have all this knowledge mm-hmm. of the previous projects,
yes, yeah.
And of course, as you said, we cannot rely on information of 20 years ago because it's the world is changed.
It's changed, yeah, of course. Yeah.
So let's say that big data are not so big. I mean that you may rely on few data. Mm-hmm. So probably I did not understand your message, mm-hmm. but well, the question is, what do you intend for big data in this case?
I think
are big data the experience of the company?
You can do big data analysis on a data set from Google. So they do this all the time, which is, the amount of information makes it valuable. Because there's so much data, there must be some good data as well, so they can predict certain things. But I'm talking about not on the same level big data analysis with your project, because you're not going to do 25 million projects, which Google has that type of information. But the information you have will be suitable for the similar type of analysis this big data analysis companies are doing, but then on a smaller scale, but with more qualitative data. So because the quality is good, you don't need the same size of the, let's say, the Google databases to get the same results out of it. So that's the difference.
I saw from the slides that there's a system to integrate something in the company, the tools and the CBS and WBS.
Yes,
It's possible to quantify how a company is far from to be close to use big data, so to use the system. I say, when is the point then the company is good enough to have the system?
That's a good question, actually. So I think that it starts with some kind of a maturity assessment. So you say, okay, let's find out where we are standing as a company. How good are we performing in several aspects, which is important for this big picture. And then you come up with some kind of a maturity matrix to say, okay, here we are performing best in class. This is not good. Here we have to educate some people. We have to, and then we come up, okay, if we want to go to this level of maturity, we need to do this and this and this. We need to have more skilled people. We need to replace some systems. We need to have better processes at the front end. But it starts all with the analysis of the current situation. Just okay, how are you ready for this, the organization, or what needs to be done to be ready? So that's because to just go ahead will be maybe lead into failure. Because if you say, okay, we don't have any skilled people and we don't have a process for this, we don't have a WBS, it doesn't make sense to aim for this final goal because it will never be there. First, you say, okay, we have to talk about the process. We have to talk about how are you handling things right now, and then we come up with we can come up with a plan how to grow to this certain maturity which is needed to have a fully integrated project control cycle. But this is the starting point, having the assessment of, let's say, challenging your company to see where you are standing in order to integrate a solution like this. Anyone else? Okay, then I want to thank you for. We are at booth 6. If you want to talk with me and my colleagues, we are at the exhibition. You can come by if you like. Otherwise, I want to thank you for your attention and your good questions, and hopefully you have something to talk to your management. Thank you.